When I was a wee lad, I really liked movies. I liked them so much that I really wanted to make my own movies. But as a kindergarten, I never really had access to a phone outside of my mom's, and I didn't really know what a camera was at the time, so I ended up using books as a way to satisfy my needs. But when I grew a little bigger, I started to get into digital drawing, but I learned quickly that you need to write a script before creating an animation. So basically, in my history, I would think of a movie idea, then start typing it, then get bored, and leave it on my Google Drive. Recently, though, I ran out of space on my Google Drive, so let that sink in for a second. So as a way to get rid of all this unused space, but not let the content go to waste, let's retell some stories from Google Drive. This is the story of a man named Opsec, who conquered the entire southeast and had a life of luxury compared to the hundreds of other rulers at the time. Now, although he did conquer the southeast, he wasn't born entirely in the southeast. Still in the south, but a little bit higher, he was born here in an independent city-state. He was born to House Hunt, who were moderately rich. So Opsec had a life full of luxury. A few years later, his brother Colin was born, and the two were taught about the horrors of war. But the two loved war and wanted to try it themselves. And a decade later, Colin got that chance. Because House Hunt was at war with Ambrose, Colin was given his own army and was sent after them, and after a while took the cities and gold mines away from House Ambrose. Opsec saw this and he wanted some action too, but his dad wouldn't let him because he was being prepared to be a king, not a warrior. So Opsec was never allowed to fight battles. And after his parents died, he was crowned king. And he had ideas. He established gold mines and put cities around them. That way people had jobs and had a stable source of money. He did this across the south and began to recognize his unified cities as one country. Opsec's next idea was to make alliances with the other countries around him. So he decided to create the Pact of Kingdoms, and he signed on with his brother. And the top dog at the time, Sir Zeus XII. He was the number one kingdom at the time because he was from a powerful house. But funny enough, Sir Zeus saw what Opsec was doing and decided to sign on with him because he saw that Opsec was a growing superpower. So the three signed on, and Opsec sent Colin to Sir Zeus to examine a city. And he noticed that the city had borders on it, so Opsec copied Sir Zeus's idea and began to build a border. Now people weren't fond of the idea because there were already borders in each city. And people didn't like the over-safeness of the kingdom. So less people funded the project over time, which was a bad thing, because we're about to enter... Ashur saw what Opsec was doing and started to raise an army, fearing that Opsec would take over the world. He wanted more men to attack, but after the construction of the wall, he knew he was running out of time, and so he got help from a friend, and they attacked. But they didn't send any scouters to see where the wall was. They did guess right and entered the once independent city-state and began to attack. Opsec was quick to protect his city though, and kicked Ashur right back out. Ashur did not give up though, and attacked the city again, and he was promptly kicked out again. Opsec saw what was going on and sent Colin after Ashur. Ashur met with his secondary army around here. Colin chased him down and quickly realized that he was outnumbered. He got pushed back to the border. The archers decided to help the army, which did cut down a lot of the enemy's army. With their armies weakened, Colin pushed Ashur around the tip of the border, and Ashur knew at this point he had lost the battle and deserted his men, the rest of which died in battle or surrendered. This was great for two reasons. One, it got the citizens patriotic about their country, and two, it got the citizens to contribute to the wall, which was finished a year later. And after that, everything was peaceful for a while. Opsec upgraded his wall from brown to blue, then red, then gold. But other than preparation of a war, nothing else really happened for a while. And then something bad happened. Sir Bute has been around since before Opsec, and him and Sir Zeus had butt heads a lot before Opsec turned the world into a safe haven. Sir Zeus wanted to attack Opsec, but with the Battle of Ashur and the fact that the Pact of Kingdoms would outnumber Sir Bute by a wide margin, he decided to stay out of politics. But at the age of 70, Sir Zeus finally died, meaning that the South was no longer conquered by one pact and was vulnerable to being attacked. Opsec knew this and sent Colin to try to retake the cities that were no longer being ruled by a ruler. And guess who's back? After the Battle of Ashur, Ashur had been stripped of everything he once held dear. On his 10-month walk home, he found his city in ruin and everyone deserted. With no other option, he took his last remaining horse and took the journey back to the now finished wall of Opsec to plead guilty. Opsec did have Ashur in jail for a period of time, but after a while let him go, and even allowed Ashur to sign the Pact of Kingdoms. And so Ashur began to build cities inside the country border. But that's what Sir Bute was hoping for, because as Colin and Ashur and their armies were tending to the city called Port Colin, Sir Bute surprise attacked the city. Ashur fled the city, but his army and Colin's army stayed to protect the port. But his army was not enough, and Colin was murdered to the vast army of Sir Bute. And as a bit of a celebration, Sir Bute went on a little bit of a shopping spree, burning OPSEC cities and taking the gold from all of them. Something that's good to know is that Colin used to fund a part of the wall. So now that everyone on that part of the wall wasn't getting paid, they rioted and left the wall. So now that a chunk of the wall was totally unprotected, Sir Bute could get past the wall with literally no resistance. But like Asher, Sir Bute didn't send any scouts to see if there was an unprotected part of the wall, because he thought OPSEC was gearing for war. So he attacked a seemingly random part of the wall, and by the time the OPSEC was alerted to protect the city, it was already being attacked. As hard as the wall's resistance was, it still wasn't enough. So it was being broken, and Sir Bute was beginning to enter the city. But OPSEC charged headfirst into Sir Bute, and against all odds, OPSEC won the battle, kicking out Sir Bute and proving that there was a new top dog in town. Although he won, the loss of his brother was a very heavy toll, and he had never lost someone in his life he had the strongest bond with. And a writer once said that there was no one who was overwhelmed with more grief than OPSEC was. But life still went on. Patriotism continued to rise, and OPSEC still had that one friend that signed on to the Pact of Kingdoms. But he didn't fight a war with them, so it wasn't really treated fairly. Year by year, Asher found himself being forced to fund a new part of the wall, and his cities being stripped of power from him. Asher knew that this wasn't fair, but he persevered, because it was better than literally nothing. And after a while, Asher died of sickness. OPSEC was now at his end. He had completed everything he dreamed, but he also lost the ones he really loved. So while suicidal, he took his army and rushed into the Heart Zone, because as a kid he was taught that there was evil in the center of the map, and he was to destroy it when he got older. At this point, it had already been destroyed, so it had kind of been rebuilt. So when OPSEC took his army there, he just destroyed every last brick. Then OPSEC went home. OPSEC stopped recording not long after that, and that was the end. No one knows what happened to OPSEC. No one knows his fate.